Well, good morning. It's the morning of Friday, 7th of June, and this is Ian R. Crane. Unusually sitting in my car, but it is absolutely chucking it down here in the southwest of England. Anyway, last night I broadcast an episode of Humanity vs. Insanity, episode 117, and my guest was John Smith, who is pioneering the common law court process in the UK. And he recently convened a common law court in which the court annulled the extradition order that was put in place by the corrupt Judge Michael Supperstone back in, back in April. Or March even, and he delayed making a decision because it was a complex case. In reality, of course, he didn't have the cojones to make a decision in the court, and so issues a ruling in writing some weeks later. In fact, literally just a few days before David and Lynn appeared at AV10. Well, last night, John was explaining the process and how the court had been convened and how the court had not only ruled that Lynn Tyer's extradition order should be annulled, but also ruled that Judge Supperstone should be removed from his position for abuse in public office. It also ruled that Lynn and David should have all of their assets returned, and that they should be given the opportunity to develop, produce, and distribute GC math. Now, obviously, a lot of reaction last night. Some people saying, oh, you know, in your dreams that this will never happen, and the courts will simply ride roughshod. Well, literally, as we finished the broadcast last night, I was advised that Lynn had received a letter from the courts stating that the extradition would now be deferred for 10 days. No reason given at all. But nonetheless, it's coincidental that this delay should occur just as John Smith escalates the case to the Supreme Court and has now advised the Supreme Court of the common law court's decisions. Now, the correspondence from the Supreme Court tried to trick him into acknowledging that he wished to appeal the decision. There is no appeal. The decision of the law courts, the legal law courts, which of course legal means the undoing of God's law, the decision has been overturned. There's no appeal here. It has simply been overturned. And John Smith has requested the opportunity now to challenge the original ruling, literally, not challenge the court, challenge the legitimacy of the court and the jurisdiction of the court by having the opportunity to literally overturn it in the court and get the courts to acknowledge the supremacy of the common law court. So this is now an opportunity for everybody who wishes to get involved to participate further in the process by writing to the Registrar at the Supreme Court. And later this morning, under this video, I will put the email address, although you can also find it in the body of the video of last night's Humanity versus Insanity. So this is very interesting. And of course, the legal system will never admit that we, the collective we, have established the criminality and used the lawful means to effectively neuter their decisions. But so they tend to get a little bit creative. So we might simply find that, there has been a technicality in the extradition process, which means that Lynn's extradition will no longer be affected. In reality, of course, it will be directly due to the role and the decisions and the commitment and conviction of the common law courts and John Smith. So thank you thank you for all of those people who have already written to the courts. Of course, they didn't respond, which is why John escalated it to the Supreme Court. So it's all to play for. So the reality is that Lynn is not out of the woods, but there is, a step in the right direction. So that was really the most important thing that I wanted to get across today, and to encourage as many people as possible to email the registrar at the Supreme Court. Let's make sure that the courts know that we are onto them, that their legitimacy will be challenged, and the whole criminal Sestui Kivi Act of 1666, where effectively everybody is treated as dead, as lost at sea, and the establishment administer their affairs because they are dead. So this obviously is so far beyond most people's comprehension, and of course that's the intention, that many people just go, well, yeah, don't understand that, and move on. But an increasing number of people are looking at this and are plucking up the courage to challenge the legal system at its own game. And you know what? I had to smile when I saw the headline on the Daily Mail today. Obviously, it's a reference to all the D-Day celebrations. Thank you for our freedom. And this is a young boy message to a veteran, an army veteran there. Well, the reality is, of course, that the word freedom is used rather loosely, because as David Noakes and Lynn Tyre found out, we do not have the freedom to cure cancer. We do not have the freedom to challenge the supremacy of the corporatocracy. You have an illusion of freedom, provided you're a good wage slave, provided that you pay your taxes and you basically do not challenge the corporatocracy, and you do not challenge the right of the parasites to do what they think they have a right to do, which is rule this planetary fiefdom for their own interests, not for the interests of the population. So, this is an opportunity for people to realize how this deception is being perpetrated, and challenge it. And it's not going to take a big chunk of the population. It will simply take a committed 3 or 4% to bring about the changes that we all know we need to see. And in the short term, it has to be reining in the corporatocracy, reining in their socio-psychopathic mentality, where the only objective is greed, and screw everybody else gets in the way. So obviously this morning I have to also mention Peterborough, and I have to say I am surprised, very surprised, because, and so are the bookies, by the way, because the bookies made the Brexit Party the 1 to 10 on favourite to actually win that election. Now, the bookies don't make those kinds of odds lightly. It's based on the ground research. So I'm going to be very interested to see the final tally on the postal votes, because the turnout was low. In fact, the winning candidate got, I think, about half of the votes that the previous incumbent got in the 2017 election. And of course, Labour held on to the Peterborough seat by a margin of just 600 votes. So, nonetheless, I mean, obviously a creditable performance by a party that has only been in existence for, 7 weeks or so now. And, the Labour Party did not campaign on a second referendum. They decided that they will keep very, very quiet about that. But I must say that I and many others are surprised at the Labour victory. Well, let's see what unfolds. Like I said, I'm going to be very interested in seeing the percentage of postal votes this time round versus, previous elections, because we know certainly from the 2005 general election, where Tony Blair was manipulated back into office, thanks to the abundance of postal votes that manifested in his constituency of Sedgefield. So postal votes are the easiest way to manipulate the outcome of an election. And of course, ironically, it is Peter Lilly's company that has the responsibility for managing and counting the postal votes. But, which might actually account for the Tories not having quite the disaster in Peterborough that they had forecast. So anyway, have a great weekend. I hope the weather improves, and please do take some time to watch last night's episode of Humanity vs. Insanity. There was not only an outstanding exchange with John Smith, but I also referenced the work of David Dubine, an excellent speaker at AV10, who has done some superb analysis of what is going on around the world in terms of crops, and the fact that extreme weather, not caused by anthropogenic climate change, extreme weather as a result of the Maunder minimum, is having a massive negative impact on agriculture. And the forecasts for grain prices by the end of the year are not good. And it may well be that everyone around the world is paying a much larger percentage of their disposable income on the basics than they are at the moment. And this is not being reported in the mainstream because obviously the establishment don't want to spark any kind of panic. But in reality, there has been less acreage planted in the USA, in Canada, and in many other countries across the world as a direct result of the amount of rainfall and also frosts. And it's the frost, the unusual frosts in subtropical areas that are causing the greatest concern. And Newfoundland and Labrador have basically declared that their agricultural industry is effectively dead. So, there's all to play for, and it is absolutely crucial that people do their own research. And I just like to say thank you to all the trolls who have started to appear on my live streams. I'm guessing that this is due to me being on point and right over the target on rather too many issues for the establishment's comfort. So thanks for that confirmation. But if that's the best that you can do, then crack on. Take care, and I will see you on Monday morning at 8:30.